So tonight is mainly about integrity. Integrity. We've got two verses from Proverbs, or two different Proverbs here, and then I'm going to read a portion of some things with you that they're considered some rules for living life with integrity. There's just 5 of them, and they are pretty short, so don't get too much of a panic over time tonight. But let's read these two. Proverbs chapter 10, verse 9 is how it is in our English text. It says, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely." There's something about integrity that is stable. There's a stability to living life with integrity. One of the ways of thinking about integrity is that you're the same basic person regardless of where you are or who you're with. Now, there's going to be differences. That's why I said the same basic person, especially when it comes to your actual character, your ethics aren't going to change based upon circumstances or where you are in your life even. Integrity is stable. But then the contrast, the rest of this saying says, "But whoever what makes his ways crooked," or the opposite of integrity, this is twisted and perverted, whoever does that, he says, will be found out. That's one of the things about a lack of integrity is even when I'm trying maybe to pretend to have character and to be someone who lives right in a certain context, maybe with church family, sooner or later people are going to figure it out. I'm not going to be able to hold on to that, even that kind of integrity, for very long. And then in the next chapter, Proverbs 11, verse 3, says, "The integrity of the upright guides them, but the crookedness of the treacherous destroys them." They're pretty similar proverbs. They both are focusing in on this idea of the power, the value of integrity, how it will change your life for the better. And then the opposite literally says that if you don't walk with integrity, it will destroy you. And so, with those proverbs and the overall idea of integrity in mind, now some rules for living life with integrity. And actually, before I share these, I do have to mention one other thing. And this was not planned at all. I happened to, this afternoon, I was on the way to Dollar General. I saw a couple of you in there, in fact. I'm making my way from the office to Dollar General real quick to home and eat and change and get here. And I happened to have a channel of some satellite radio on, and I've listened to this a couple of times, and I kind of go back and forth on whether I just want to change channels when it comes on. It's this whole, have y'all heard any of these radio stations that are doing anonymous call-ins? Where you just get whatever's on your chest, or you can tell something bad you've done that nobody knows about, and it's all anonymous. They don't tell your name, they don't give out your phone number, at least they're not supposed to. Well, here were the two this afternoon. One was a man who, his ex-wife, he says, cheated on him. And then he says, here's my anonymous share. What she doesn't still know is I was cheating on her the whole time. And not just with other women. Now the two people hosting, they think it's hilarious. And then the second person, they just had two. The second one was a lady who says she got a new refrigerator. I got her husband to buy a new refrigerator because she unplugged her old one. Really? And told him it was broken. And then the radio person says he didn't even check, and then the other host says, well, why would he? Why would you check? He says to this woman and says he wouldn't check because he trusts you and you're lying, but he's laughing as he's saying it. And then everybody has a good laugh, and it's the end of the anonymous section of the radio. Integrity. Here's some rules. Number 1, live life as if everything you do in private will someday be made public. Think about that. I mean, sooner or later, if it's something you're doing, it is going to come out. And this isn't just about the big things. I mean, and you think about the phone calls. There's a big one and one that's on the smaller side, right? A new refrigerator that you didn't really need versus adultery and all that. Those are not exactly in the same category. So you might think of it that way. This isn't just about what you do in private as far as an affair or something. This could be the tone of voice you use with your kids or your spouse. You ever been caught doing that, where maybe you were yelling at your kids and you didn't realize anybody was even around? You're out in the backyard and then you realize your neighbor's watching you over the fence. Live life like everything you do in private will one day be made public. And there's a sense in which it will in one way or another, right? And then secondly, along the same line, speak as if everything you say will be made public at some point. This doesn't mean you can't ever speak critically about someone or discuss someone's situation and relationship or share with someone in confidence what's on your heart and vent. Maybe it's also the question, are you doing that even when you do that in a healthy way? What if that person saw what you said about them? Would you still be able to have a healthy conversation with them? I heard about a man who sent a text by mistake. You ever done that, where you put in the wrong name, or you don't realize your phone went back to a different person's name and you send a text you didn't mean to send? That can get fun sometimes. Sometimes it can be not so much fun. Well, he was discussing with a person with the same name a situation involving this other person with the same name when he sent it to the wrong person. And they were still okay because of the way he talked about them. Even though they were discussing something that was an issue, he still was kind and loving about it. Think about that one. And then have you ever posted something that you thought was a private message on social media and it was actually a public post and you go, whoops, and you have to quickly delete it? What if you operated on the basis of everything I say, if it did come out? And in the digital world, everything that I type or text, there's a chance that it will be made public, even if I think it is secure and encrypted as possible. Something else to keep in mind. And then number 3, don't say something in the digital world. This is social media, text, email, whatever. Don't say something in the digital world that you wouldn't say in person. There's something about a screen or that it dehumanizes and separates us. We lose that personal touch. It's one thing if you're sitting in the same room with me looking at me, and it's something else when I can just send it to you. And people act differently online than they would in person. And sometimes that's because if they say certain things, the other person might attack them physically, right? I mean, there's some very practical sides to this, right? About that. And I added an extra quote I've seen years ago and I think about often. It says it's something along the lines of write down your encouraging words. That way the person has them. Send it in a note or an email or a text or something. And if you're going to express critique or bring something to someone's attention, say it. Maybe say it and meet up in person and say it. So that you can be heard, but it's not something that's going to be forever in stone. Then number 4, what would you wish you would have done looking back 5 years from now? You know, what choices, what words, what actions will I take now? And you can apply this one to the things you say to your family. You can apply this one to sexual sin, to a lot of different things. In 5 years, will I look back on this choice and be glad I did this, that I might be caught up in the moment thinking about? I thought about people in Scripture, Ananias and Sapphira. 5 years, if they could have looked 5 years down the road, do you think they would have lied about the money? Judas, Esau, and selling his birthright? What would you do, or what would you wish you would have done in 5 years? And then the last one kind of sums it all up. It says, focus more on your character than your competency. What that means is things like education and skills, they matter. They don't really matter at all if you lack integrity, if you lack character. I think about Solomon, pretty skilled, educated guy. Wisest guy to ever live, one way it's said. He's a king. He's got everything and anything. He writes a whole document we call Ecclesiastes about all of his pursuits and adventures. He had the skills and education, but for at least a good portion of his life, he didn't necessarily have the integrity of heart that he should have. And it leaves a very dark stain on his looking back on his life. We don't know for sure how everything ended up for Solomon. but we do learn something about the value of integrity. And you can flip that. And most people don't care. You might be rather unskilled and uneducated if you're a person they can depend on, if you're a person of character. And the proverb that warns us tonight, walk with integrity. You won't like what happens when you don't. And then some practical tips or rules for thinking through, how do I live life with integrity? Same basic person, regardless of anything else. Now's the time when we sing together the song of encouragement, where we call out to each other as almost the call of our God to come and make things right that might not be right, to come and serve Jesus better, come and find encouragement and prayers if they're needed as we stand and sing together.